The environment has been
What we're saying is have a heart.
We've got to be able to regenerate our
There'll be
condoms.
people who are kind, people who are cruel, but that's life. You can be bigoted about videos. I'm fine with that.
No sex. If you want to have sex, wear a condom. I do allow my patients to have sex with their spouse. I do. But they know the risk and they take the adequate precautions of condoms. And we would actually, I would bring the spouse in for testing regularly every 6 months.
And condoms are 100% safe?
No.
When used correctly.
Okay, let's look at condoms then.
You need to use it correctly. As a rule, the publications say that it's about 85 to 95% effective. Counseling wise, I'll tell them it's 90% effective. The technique, the appropriate wear is most important.
Yeah.
You want to educate
you
our
have to.
viewers? What is the right technique?
Oh, I should have brought my prop.
I have different target audience. We do outreach in coffee shops, uncles and all this. So to them, 2 condoms is the safest. So they told me, I put
Double.
2. I'm very safe. And our uncle told me, I use what oil you call it?
Vaseline oil.
Johnson's
Those
baby
menthol
oil.
oils and all this. So the condom break out, no. So they are still practicing very old school method or whatever, and they still think, I put 2 condoms safe. I put massage oil. I put
So are 2 condoms safe?
Definitely no.
Because rubber rubs against rubber, it will break.
So you just use one proper good one.
Well, the important thing is to actually check the marketplace and make sure you're using a condom that actually fits you correctly, right? That's the first thing. And you need to use a product that's, really a good product. I mean, because there are products available that are, cheaper on the market, and they're not as good as, say, quality product. I don't know if I can mention that, but for example, Durex is a reasonable product. So you check the marketplace and you check the expiry date on the condom. You make sure it jolly well fits you properly, because what happens is that they can slip and they can break. They're not infallible, but apart from education, it's the only preventive measure we have. We don't have anything else.
Okay, we've been talking one form of infection, but infection can come through blood transfusions, through syringes or injections.
True.
How prevalent is that as a cause of infection in Singapore?
Blood transfusion is very low.
Very low.
Because when you donate blood, they actually check the quality.
I have some figures here that I can share with you and you can verify. In 2012, intravenous drug use only accounted for 0.4% of HIV infections, and there was a significant dip from 20 cases in 2008 to only 2 cases in 2012. So actually, from injections and intravenous drug use, that's negligible.
Well, these figures are self-reported.
No, these are from Ministry of Health.
Yes, the Ministry of Health. They conducted the interview, so they're self-reported. So if I'm already at the Ministry of Health. I'm not gonna tell them I have. I'm using intravenous. That's just gonna add one more slap on my risk. So it's self-reported, and so that figure it's downplayed. It's very low. But if you speak to people who volunteer at the prisons, they tell you otherwise. There are many people who are diagnosed with HIV in prison are also intravenous drug users. So it's certainly there, but probably not as high as, say, some of our neighboring countries. But all these figures, again, it's self-reported, including the official numbers, which is 5,000 people living with HIV or diagnosed with HIV in Singapore.
So I would agree with Evan. That's true. But having said that, a lot of intravenous drug users would also be doing casual sex because they're under the influence of drugs. They're doing many things. So it's difficult to separate.
More than one avenue.
In fact, this afternoon I just came out of Changi prisons and I looked after patients with HIV there. And yes, many of them, majority of them, would actually have had it through drugs.
Not in prison.
No, not in prison. But they were arrested for prisons. And when they go through prisons, they would have a HIV screening done, which is a good thing. You pick them up early, you counsel them. In fact, that's the best time. You catch them with coughs and explain to them what can you do, what you can't do, and they have no choice but to listen.
But that only happens, I hear that the recidivism is very high, right? So in prison they're very obedient and they follow all the rules, and when they're released, they fall back in their old ways.
That's a problem. We have many people who are started on treatment, they do very well on treatment, they recover, and we want to talk about viral suppression, immune reconstituted, but when they go back, within 1 month of discharge, they've stopped the HIV medication, they go back to their old ways, and if you are not so lucky, they will start abusing drugs again and sharing needles.
But I don't understand this. They know they have AIDS or they know they have HIV, and you say they stop taking the medication. Is there some explanation for this suicidal?
But HIV it's a very broad, it's a very complex issue.
Yeah.
It doesn't just concern the virus or the infection itself. It's a huge psychosocial, societal issue, and our prisons are not the best in the world in terms of treating or managing the inmates. And people with HIV are in isolation cells. They can't, they're all isolated, they can't exercise with the rest of the inmates. They are treated with so little dignity and so little human
in
rights.
Singapore?
Yeah.
Is it necessary?
No,
it's
they're
not
actually,
necessary.
They're actually
It's definitely not necessary because there's no way of transmission.
No, actually, they do have yard time. They do mingle with many other people.
But it's all within. It's not as free as if it's an inmate without HIV.
You have some restrictions, but compared to the others, in fact, you do have. You would have a specialist visiting them every few months, and the kind of HIV care they get there is comparable, if not better, than many of the patients in private practice. I'll be very honest with you, because they are paying money for the specialist to go down to attend to them.
Who's paying money?
The prisons.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay. It's unfortunate that they discovered this illness. There are some restrictions, but comparably, they are really a lot better than many of our neighboring countries. You can't beat them with the States or whatever, but comparing to the neighboring countries, it's really quite good. It's really quite good.
Okay, from that, from infection, perhaps we can move to testing for HIV and the availability of tests and all that. Short break. We'll be back in a moment.